doing?
Hello.
Good.
All right, we'll give everybody just a second to get set. No good in the back? All right, questions for Kenny? First one will be Chris Nee. We got the microphones. We gotta wait a second.
In-person press conferences, problems.
Heard you had to wear pants today.
I did.
Can you just talk about the offense and how they developed throughout the preseason, the growth that you saw from throughout the quarterback room and the other positions coming together and them joining as a unit as one?
Well, the first meeting we had was effort-based. You know, when people put on the tape, we wanted to make sure that everybody understands that we're going to give an extreme amount of effort every single time we take the field, and that we're going to play smart. And I thought throughout camp, you could see those two things show up. You could see our guys take pride in those two things. And anytime you want to be a good offense, right, you have to be efficient or explosive. You can't lack one or the other. Either you have to be one of the most efficient offenses in the country where you can't bite yourselves in the foot, or you have to be one of the most explosive offenses in the country so where you can overcome those, you know, inefficient plays and those negative plays. I think this offseason we've shown a little bit of both. We've shown a little bit of, we've become more explosive than we were last year, but on the same token, we're a little more consistent. You know, our guys know what to do. Yeah, we still have false starts. Every team in the country does. We want to have 0, right? That's our goal, but at the same time, you know, we have improved drastically in that category. So those would be the 2 categories for us. In terms of quarterback, I think just the understanding of the offense, the understanding of what we're trying to get accomplished. And I know it sounds fundamental, but the understanding of football, like it's 4 verticals. Why are we running 4 verticals? What is the scheme behind it that everybody in the country runs? Why is this a play that everybody in the country runs, right? It's just why do teams play cover 3? Why do teams match verticals? Why do teams bring field blitz, boundary blitz? What are the weaknesses, right? The big picture football philosophy for those guys. So when we get into a game week, it's not what play are we installing, it's this is what we're running, and this is why, because of this, right? We're picking plays from our arsenal. We're not just grab bagging a game plan, so.
All right, next will be Gene over to your right.
Hey, Kenny. How you doing?
Phenomenal. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, thank you. I want to ask you about the preparing for Notre Dame. New defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman comes over from Cincinnati. How much time have you spent studying, obviously, Cincinnati tape the last several months? And then what are some tendencies maybe you can share with us? What's something that stands out about his defenses?
A lot of tape to answer that question. And he's a phenomenal football coach. I mean, there's a reason he was the most sought out defensive coordinator in the entire nation last year. It's because he's a phenomenal football coach. And he did a phenomenal job at Cincinnati. And what stands out is his guys play super, super hard. They play aggressive, right? They don't let offenses dictate to them. They try to do the dictating too. And you can hear him talk about that. He wants to play defense like offense plays offense. He wants to be the guy that makes the calls. He wants to be the guy that imposes the will, right? But for us, it's not really about them. It's about us. And if we can go out there and we can execute, if we can go out there and we can be efficient, if we can go out there and we can win one-on-ones in certain situations, and we're going to get one-on-ones. I mean, that's what they do, right? They win one-on-ones. Up front, they force one-on-ones with their movement and their pops and their pressures. In the back end, they get one-on-ones. So that's going to be the game. It's kind of boring to say, yeah, it's a game of football. It's going to come down to one-on-ones, but at the end of the day, that is what football is. It comes down to a game of one-on-ones in the core, in the box, and then the quarterback's trying to find the best one-on-one possible that gives the best opportunity to be successful.
All right, we'll go to the back right corner to Aslan.
Can you talk about that sort of balance between explosiveness and consistency? When you guys are able to win on first down, you just seem to be so much more explosive and dynamic. Does Jordan have a better understanding and grasp of how important it is to win first and second down, or are you guys at a point now where you're even confident the way he can handle 3rd and long?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to be in 3rd and short situations. Just statistically, amongst all college football, I mean, those are a lot higher conversion rates. So the most important play to drive is the first play, right? P and 10s, possession and 10, right? That is the most important play. Possession and 10 and plays after big plays. You know, if you can be successful after a big play, on a 1st and 10, or you can be successful your first play of a drive. Those are what gets you into a rhythm offensively, because both teams come off the sideline with a plan for the first play. The perfect plan. Both coaches feel great about the first call on the first play of each possession, right? It's what team executes on that first play, and what team has success on that first play can really, really affect a drive, like you're saying. And getting off to that good start, right, keeping us out of those bad down and distances is something that we're preaching hard on. And in terms of if we get into a 3rd and long, I do have a lot of confidence in our quarterbacks and our offensive line to protect, and our wideouts to win one-on-ones, and our tight ends to win one-on-ones, to go out there and be in a situation where I don't think, oh, we just need to call a screen. We can actually be aggressive, throw the ball downfield, and convert.
Stay on the right side for Ira.
Last year, you guys, due to a variety of circumstances, had to play a lot of different receivers with varying results. How much progress has that room made over the last year, and what are you excited to see out of them on Sunday?
A ton. I mean, a ton of progress. Those guys just come to work. I mean, we've added some players to that mix too that are talented. So when you add a mix to that talent level, it allowed us to kind of shake up where those guys played a little bit. You know, not everybody is the boundary X receiver. Not everybody is suited to be the number 1 receiver to the field and get pressed every play all game, because that's what teams do to number 1 receivers to the field now. They remove them, they play press, and they say, let him beat you, right? So not everybody's suited for those roles. However, sometimes that's just the best you have that year to put in those roles. I think this year, more than last year, we've been able to move our guys around because we've had, 3 players come in that are going to have significant minutes at the wideout position that are going to allow us to move some of those guys around into more natural positions for them, into something to where they're not being jammed every snap, or something to where they can get free releases. And I think that's something for us schematically that we're working on, and from the work in that room, they've brought it every day. I don't know if there's been, we've had a lot of groups that have been consistent, but there's been an extreme amount of consistency from that wideout group this spring and fall camp, specifically this fall camp, that really excites me.
Front row for Kurt.
Coach Norvell, I think last night on his TV show, talked about how I think 8 offensive linemen he thinks that can help the team win games. Could be those guys if need be. I guess would you feel about your confidence in that group relative to a year ago?
Yeah, a lot more confident. I do think we have 8 guys. I think having all those guys back is key. I think that position and that position group, it's about continuity, it's about teamwork, it's about communication. When you talk what makes offenses successful, like I've said it before, and I don't want to repeat myself, but a big part of being consistent is the offensive line, right? Because those are where the negative plays happen, when guys are on the same plays. Wide receivers very rarely cause a negative play, right? It's up front which causes the negative plays, right? So when you have a group of people that it may not be the best call, it may not be the best look, but we can get the 5 guys to block the 5 guys, and instead of it being 2nd and 13, it is 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9. Instead of it being 1st and 15 with a penalty, it is 1st and 10 still, right? Those are the situations that I think our offensive line is going to keep us out of, is those TFLs, those big negatives, because I think we're at a lot better understanding of what we're trying to get accomplished offensively. I think Coach Atkins has done a phenomenal job teaching those guys the why. Like I said, year 1 was about teaching verbiage. This year, I felt like we've been able to teach football and teach the why we do things, not just the verbiage we call inside zone. Everybody has a word they call inside zone, right? In year 1, that's what you're teaching. In year 2, you're teaching the football. So I'm really happy with those guys, and I do believe we have 8, maybe 9.
All right, next will be Gene over here on your right. To your right.
Over here. Kenny, with that running back room's pretty full right now. You got DJ Williams transferred in. Trayshawn Ward had a great camp. Obviously, how do you handle the rotation going in? And then once you get into a game, is it basically hot hand, or how are you going to handle all those guys?
We have a specific plan for how we're going to get those guys touches. You always want to have a variety of running backs. You always want to have a bunch of running backs, because you don't want one guy to have to carry the ball 30 times, right? That's not good for him. That's not good for the football team. Right? We want to be as fresh as possible going into the 4th quarter. And we want to be able to run the football in the 4th quarter. And by doing that, you've got to play a variety of backs early in the game, so you have guys that are fresh when that 4th quarter hits. So we have a specific plan to how we're going to use those guys. And to your token, there is some, you know, if there's a hot hand, right, you're going to keep feeding the hot hand, right? But at the same time, you know, we've got a bunch of guys that I think are going to be very successful, that have the tools necessary to be successful. So I think it's a combination of the hot hand, but at the same time, sticking to the plan to make sure we get guys rested and healthy and fresh going into that third and fourth quarter.
And we have time for a couple more. Next will be Andre, front row to your right.
Hey, Coach, just if you talk about just the tight end position and just that added depth with Jordan back, and just how vital of a role you see that obviously playing in the offense this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's big. I mean, anybody who watches us knows we get into 12 personnel, we get into 32 personnel, we get into 22 personnel. And having a guy like Jordan, who's a veteran, a big, put his hand in the dirt tight end, along with everybody else in that room coming back, once again, that's just an influx of talent into that room. We didn't lose anybody, we just influxed the talent. I don't even know if that's a word, but you know, the way I said it, but it works. But I mean, I'm fired up about him. I mean, that's a guy who, you talk about his story, transferring here, getting hurt, getting a 5th year back, the COVID year back, and just the mentality he's had this last year to get back. You know, that's a dude you can trust when he goes on the field, because he's put in the work and he's been determined to get to this point. Everything this last year has been for this point, right? For what we're about to do on Sunday. And that's a guy you can have great faith in and great trust, because you know the work he's put in every single day to get himself back for this moment.
All right, we'll go to Aslan in the back right corner.
You guys will have a few more days here of practice before Notre Dame. Will you learn anything from your quarterback, you think, in the next few days that will change your guys' minds in terms of how you want to utilize your quarterback?
I don't know about that. It's just good for our guys to get out there and run a game plan. You know, when you're running your plays and you're playing your defense every day, you know, it's a little bit of, you know, monotony to it, right? You know, based off this safety's mannerisms or this linebacker's mannerisms, you kind of have a feel for what's happening when you play your same guys every day. So the game gets super easy in fall camp, in my opinion, right, for those quarterbacks, because you're like, oh, he's bluffing, right? Oh, he's spinning, he's rotating, oh, they're bringing boundary pressure, because you're just so used to those guys' mannerisms and their alignments, right? When you go into a game week, you've got to be able to translate what you see on the field, right, or what you see in the film room to the field, and you really only have a couple days to do it. So you've got to be so dialed in to what you're looking at on the film that you can take it to the field and be able to apply it quickly. And that dynamic gets even harder when you're game planning for a team that the personnel is not what you're watching. That takes a whole new dynamic when you have a new defensive coordinator somewhere, because you have to then watch one tape for the scheme, another tape for the players, and you have to say, okay, what is this guy going to do with these players around this scheme? Because nobody's just going to carbon copy what they do. Every good coach, and he's a phenomenal defense coordinator, is going to adapt to their talent. So the game within the game, week one, is how is he going to adapt to what he does and what he's done to the personnel that they have at Notre Dame.
Last one will be Brendan, front row over here.
Going back to the offensive line, Kenny, can you discuss the maturity and experience that both Dylan Gibbons and Devontae Taylor have brought to that group? And then secondly, when you're deciding like the right combination of 5 of them, is it like where Dylan Gibbons plays best, or is it like more collective for that entire 5?
Well, obviously, those two, it's huge having guys that have played a lot of football. You know, what people forget is offensive line is such a reactionary position. It's probably more reactionary than any position on the field, O-line and D-line, because you're 3 inches, 4 inches away from each other. And who you block changes based off of what somebody does that far away from you. One person goes that way, you're up to the backer. One person goes that way, you're down on a double team, like that. So in order to train those movements, right, you need reps. So having those veterans and those guys who have played snaps and been around a lot of football, right, is huge, going back to not taking TFLs, being able to handle movements, because they've seen the movements full speed so much. They've seen such variety of movements. What they've seen is not something that's, oh, I've never seen that yet, or I haven't seen that at that speed, because you can't always replicate movements, you know, in practice at the speed you're going to see them in a game. But those guys that have played games, those guys that that have been around football for a long time, they're used to those fast, quick twitchy movements and what is their initial reaction. Because that's the key. You can't think. You've got to react to the movement, right? You can think pre-snap based off what you think they're going to do based off a film study, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to react to the movement that they make. And then in terms of us up front, like I said, I think Coach Atkins has done a phenomenal job, and I'm fired up for where that group is heading. And we're going to put the 5 guys on the field that make the football team best in those 5 positions. It's not he is the best this or he is the best that. It's what is the best combination of the 5. What is the best combination of the 6 or the 7 that may maybe rotate, or the 8. Whatever that is, it's going to be what is the best for the football team, not the best place for the individual player.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.